Alrighty. I am live. Okay, so let's go to this. This will be interesting. Since in order to chat, I have to go through, well, maybe, let's see if I can move this to a different window. Maybe I'll move this to a different window. New window. Still trying to figure this out because I don't want to keep, when I'm reading the chat, switching to my YouTube thing. So, okay, so let's make this one. Okay. All right. Sorry for all the dead air. I'm still trying to figure this out. But it looks like we still got people coming in, so I'm not super freaked out about it. Let me know if my volume is okay. I turned down the volume because when I was playing back the last stream, hi Federica. I was playing back the last stream, I noticed that my voice was kind of loud and cracky. So if it's still like that, I can lower the volume. I think that might help with that. Okay. All right. So I think we're going to go ahead and get started. When I was trying to figure out all the shenanigans, I had forgotten to put the Discord link in the description for this stream. So it should be there now, as well as a link for my Ko-fi in case anyone wants to donate, which, I mean, there's no pressure to. This is completely free. I'm doing this for fun and because I had this curriculum lying around and wasn't going to be able to use it. So I think this is going to be fun. So basically, how this is going to work is I'm going to go through some slides in my very professional looking PowerPoint. And we'll have some discussion about character design and things like that. I'll do some demonstrations about what we go over today, which today we're going over overview, shape, and line. So got quite a bit to go through today. But yeah. So I'll go through all this, and then a lot of your guys' participation would be on the Discord if you decide to do that. So the Discord is, because I'll be giving a few assignments, and the Discord is where you would upload the assignments at your leisure, and we'll go over them. There are a few different text channels on the Discord. One of them is for assignments, and then there's a separate one for critique. So the ones that are in assignments are not open for critique. If you want someone to critique your assignment, put it also over in critiques, because I don't want people just going around giving unsolicited advice about people's artwork. I want to, if you want advice, I want to keep it in one place so we don't have people running rampant and possibly hurting people's feelings who aren't ready for that kind of judgment of their art. But critique is very important for learning how to be a good artist. Like, there's only so much, and I think that's what's going to help you guys in this class more than anything else, because you can find really great character design videos on YouTube. Probably better than whatever I'm going to say. But, like, it's that interaction that's really going to help you guys figure out where you need to improve. So basically the point of this, the point of this class was to have you guys design a character. So in this first class, we're going to start making a whole new character and then develop that character, and by the end, hopefully, you will have a fully realized, fully developed character. So that is the plan. I've noticed you guys have gone pretty silent. I don't know if you're just really paying attention to what I'm saying or if something's happened. Okay. Like, if you guys are ready for me to begin, someone say something so that I know that you guys are here. Yes. Mocha says yes. Okay. So, the first slide is just, what do you think about when designing a character? Like, these are the things I want you guys in the chat to be thinking about it and also putting some things out there. And why is character design important? So, what I have here are a few of my own designs that I've done over the years. Kind of cheating with the lazuli one. Wah! But yeah, like, these are, I've got on the left a character in a comic that I'm doing right now, and then Lazuli from the Foul Twin series, and then like a Thumbelina character design, and then on the right are two of my book characters. And so all different tones, different color palettes, different feels. It kind of kept with my style of drawing. I didn't really branch out a whole lot when it came to different styles. We'll talk a little bit about that later. Okay, what? My computer froze. Okay. Okay. All right, so I'm seeing in the chat, there's people saying, talking about color, who they are, what they do, think about my character's personality and abilities and lore and looks. Like, yes, these are all correct answers. Something else I like, yes, all correct answers. And why is character design important? I don't think I saw anybody tackle that question. Are you guys experiencing buffering? Because I'm getting an error message on my end. Just let me know if anything weird is going on. Okay, so yes, character design does help you keep your art consistent. And also when it comes to just the overall story, like if you're developing a cast of characters, character design is really important when it comes to understanding what each character's role is in the story. We'll get into this later on, but different characters, like different colors, denote different character traits. Obviously what they wear really cues you off. Poses, like you should be able to tell from a good character design by just looking at that character what they're like. And that's what a good character design does, is it's very important to helping you tell the story of the characters, and also to help the audience empathize with said characters. So we'll move on to the next slide. So this is the character designer's toolkit. There's story, story, story. That's the most important part to me. Like every time you go into a different part of the design, you always have to keep going back to story. So like if you're trying to figure out the style for your design and you're like, well, my regular style is like Powerpuff Girls, but I want to do like a really gritty, like detective noir story. So you might have to change up your style in order to fit the story. Same thing with costuming. If you want your character to like be in the Wild Wild West, but you also put a sword on your character, you've got to have a really good reason for that character to be wearing a sword. Otherwise, it makes no sense. Another thing to help you develop story is research. And then drafting anatomy skills is important, mostly for readability for me. Like there are some really good comics out there that, and even cartoons that don't have good art styles, like, or the art is very, very simplistic, but it's readable. You understand what's going on all the time. And that's really what's important when it comes to character design, is that everything is readable. So if you're not like an amazing, amazing artist, that's not required for good character design or for this class. What's really important is that you have a story and that you are like really invested in bringing that out in the character design. So this is the first assignment, and you don't have to do it while we're doing this. But it's design a character based on yourself or some other new concept. The class I was supposed to teach, they were kind of pushing me towards like, don't make this super hard on the students. Let's just have them do a character design of themselves, which you can do, but you can design anything. Don't get too hung up on the logistics if you need to do research. This is a rough draft to get down the personality and basic shape of the character. Think about story. So, and I'll get rid of this 20-minute marker thing. Doop. It should not take you 20 minutes. You can take as long as you want. This was supposed to be all done in like a day sort of class. So, yeah. But, so basically when you're doing this rough draft, don't really get worried about like your research or anything like that. Like I think the next slide is my character design. This was my character design that I did really fast. I was like, I just know that I want to do a Japanese kitsune samurai character. And that's it. That's all I went into. And he's like got this little boy, girl, who knows what gender the child is, that he like carries around. And so I kind of saw this character as a gentle giant. And you get that from that he's carrying a child. And he doesn't have like big brutish shapes to him. He's got more of the foxy triangle shapes, which we'll get into more later. And then the child has more round shapes. to kind of play up the cuteness factor. But I didn't do any research. Like, I know that the kimono thing is all wrong. And I'm just trusting that I'm gonna fix that later. This is just to get out like a basic design. So if you have any questions, I will be taking questions at certain points. So just kind of hold on to them for a bit. Let's go through my notes. Okay, so the first thing that we're going to go over as far as designing a character is shape. So there are 3 main shapes that are used in character design, and every other shape is kind of a distortion or combination of these 3 shapes, which is circle, triangle, and square. And everyone gets a very specific kind of feel from each of these 3 shapes. So here's some participation. What do you feel when you see these shapes? When you're answering, please be clear which shape you're talking about. Like, each shape has kind of its own feeling to it. So let's see in the chat what different feels you get from these shapes. I did not draw these, by the way. And I will say design shapes are different from anatomy shapes. I'll go into this later more. But one of the big hang-ups I've found when talking to new students are, like, if I tell them to pick out a shape in a character, they'll be like, well, the head is an oval. And I'm like, yes, technically, but what's the overall shape of the character? Like, your arms are cylinders usually, your chest is kind of box-shaped, but those aren't the shapes of the design. Okay, I'm getting some answers. Yeah, circles are like friendly, warm, safe. Square is big and strong, also tends to be more towards like brutish, stupid characters. But like, what about the triangle? Like, what does the triangle specifically? The triangle, I feel, is the most interesting shape out of the 3, just personally. Yes, triangles are like usually used with smart characters, but also evil characters, which I find is very interesting. So let's go back to our slides. So here are some characters who have the very basic shape language. SpongeBob SquarePants, he's obviously a square. Like, he's the epitome of kind of dense, stupid character. But then he has like circle motifs as well. He's got the circles for the eyes and circles all through his design, in his pores and stuff. And it's like, yeah, well, eyes are round shaped, but like when they make them that big and that round, they're obviously trying to get across that like friendly, soft feeling. And then there's Mickey Mouse, who's like all round. So many circles. And then there's Sylvester the cat. And his is more subtle, but he has a lot of triangle shape motifs. Like his whole head, like if you go from the point of his whiskers connecting up above his head, there's a triangle shape in the head, there's a triangle shape in the entire design from the top of his head to like his tail and his foot. And then his body is vaguely triangle shaped, where it's like thinner at the neck and then bigger at the bottom. Which makes sense because he's kind of like a sneaky cat character, like always trying to kill Tweety Bird. So, yeah, lots of very obvious shapes in those. Here's some more characters. So, obvious, again, very obvious. The little boy, can't remember, Russell. Russell's very round. So many round shapes. He's got like the obvious circles on his pins, on his sash, and he's got a circle on the flag. He holds a horn that has a circular bell, and then his body is just all round circles. And then there's Carl, who has a square head and a square body shape and a square bow tie and square glasses. But you can see that like round friendliness poking through in a little bit in his tennis ball cane, but definitely in the pin that he has on his shirt, on his lapel. So you can tell there Pixar was going for very, very specific shape language. And then there's Yosemite Sam, who is like triangular. So you've got a triangle from the tips of his mustache up between his eyes, and then like his eyebrows create a triangle, his hat is a triangle, his guns create an inverted triangle, and that just really like screams antagonist. Alright, so now we're getting into some harder ones, because like the circle, square, triangle give very specific feelings, and you can combine those to get complex feelings. So like Tarzan, to me, he has a very triangular face. Like that's very, it's very angular. Trying to remember why I picked this photo. I think I just liked the pose. And he's got like the triangular, like kind of Dorito-shaped chest, kind of showing that he's the smart guy, even though he looks kind of brutish and stuff. And his hunched over position, he does get more like square boxy shapes. But and then Tinkerbell is a lot of roundness, but she also has some triangular things going on in hers as well. Like her wings kind of create an inverted triangle, and then she's got the spiky design on her skirt. So it, like all the roundness kind of plays into what we think about with fairies. You're like, oh, they're cute, and they like, you know, they are good and they grant wishes, but then there's those hints of triangle where it's like, but Tinkerbell's kind of mischievous and kind of a jerk. So you get that in her design without even like having to see her animated. And then there's Poe, who is a lot of circles, but then I also do get kind of some squares in his design. Like the black of his arms is boxy, and the way he's standing here is like one big square or one big rectangle. So he's a lovable character, but he's also like strong and dependable as well. Let's see, what's my next one? Okay, so sometimes the shape motif is not super obvious or even really incorporated in the actual limbs of the character. So like especially when it comes to like video games and stuff like that, because they're so realistic. And even I noticed when it comes to anime, a lot of anime doesn't incorporate a lot of shapes into the overall design, like with Poe or something like that. Instead, they will have very subtle, like, design motifs in their clothing or in their hair, but it's not something all-encompassing. So like with the Detroit Become Human guy on the left, he has a triangle on his lapel. And in the game, like, you're not sure, are these automatons, or robot people, which is what this guy is, like, are they good? Do they have good intentions? Like, is this character reliable? And so that triangle motif kind of puts in like a little bit of doubt. And then like with Hercules, you've got this very swirly kind of design going through all of his stuff, which harkens back to the illustrator that they used as inspiration for the designs for this movie, but also kind of brings in some Grecian designs as well. So with his design and with some of the other designs in Hercules, it's not a shape, though obviously they did use shapes in these designs. It's not a shape so much as it is a pattern or design. And that's the same thing with Rapunzel. Like, she has a lot of like really intricate, flowy embroidery that kind of mirrors her hair being very flowy and ribbony almost. So like, these design and shape motifs don't have to be super obvious or super basic. So what's my next slide? Okay. So I thought I would, because I'm just trying to hammer home this idea of shapes, and so I'm going to break some of these down in Photoshop so you guys can see exactly what I'm seeing. So, come on, you can do it. There we go. My Photoshop is waking up. Okay, so this is Wirt from Over the Garden Wall, and wild guess as to what shape he is. He's a circle. So he's got circle here, he's got circle here and here, he's got circle here, he's got circle here, and then here and here and here. He's just a zillion circles. Boy is all circles. And then we've got Maui, which he actually has a couple different ones. Like, the obvious one would be square. Like, he's just a big hulking square. So you could do that. Or to kind of go into some of the more naturalistic shapes in his character design, kind of showing that he's kind of a more fluid character. He has a lot of, well, that's not a good color. He has a lot of semicircles. So you've got one there, and then you've got a lot of semicircles all through his design. Then one right here, and then like that. So he's got a lot of semicircles. And then there's Milo. And Milo, I thought this was interesting. Like, they really leaned hard into triangles with this guy. So you've got a triangle here, you've got a triangle here, you've got a triangle here, and even here probably. Just like lots of triangles. Even though he's a soft boy, he is the brains of the story. Like, that's his whole function in Atlantis, the Lost Empire. And so they didn't try to mix it up. Well, he does have his round glasses. So that's where they show that, you know, he's got a really fluffy core. He's not some evil person. And it would have made a big difference if they had given him like square rimmed glasses or something like that. It would have given a whole different feel to his character. All right. So now for some more complicated shapes. So we've got Snow White, which I was like, what kind of shapes are they using for this girl? And I kind of settled on like a mushroom shape, like that. So you've got that here, and kind of upside down here, and then here, and upside down here, and here. So it's like a very weird, but also kind of soft, organic shape. It's almost like circular round, but not quite. It's kind of like a blend between a circle and a triangle, which actually really makes sense. Like, I love Snow White as a character because I feel like she's just so cheeky, and she looks like she doesn't know what's going on, and she looks kind of like a damsel in distress, but then she gives a look and you're like, you know exactly what's going on. Okay, so Toph is more straightforward, but also she has two very distinct shapes going on. So in the head area, it's definitely circles. Lots of circles. Which I think definitely was played up when she was, you know, pretending to be weak and submissive. And also she's a child, so that brings out more of her innocence. But then she just also is very strong and square. So you got a square here, you got a square here, and then squares in her sleeves. And I think that was very, very much on purpose, because one of the popular symbols in the Earth Kingdom in Avatar: The Last Airbender is this, which is a circle and a square. Whoops. So it makes sense that they would make their main Earthbender character evoke those shapes very strongly. And then the last one, which is Ariel. And Ariel's is almost just by necessity, this is her shape. But it's like a teardrop kind of shape. So you've got the teardrop shape here, and here, and a little bit there as well. So yes, like just by nature of how the mermaids are designed, they kind of take on that shape, but also it denotes water. It's very organic looking, very flowy. So it also it kind of gives like a free spirit kind of feel to it. So it really lends itself to her character. And I believe that's the last one. And then, okay. One more thing to do before we go on. Let me check the chat really quick, actually. Let's see what's going on there. Okay. Cool. Everyone just kind of chilling, listening to my soothing tones. All right. So the last thing I was going to do is kind of do a quick sketch of my own characters, a couple of my own characters, and kind of go through my thought process. So kind of going off of the mermaid thing, I also use the teardrop design in my mermaid. She's a space alien mermaid character, and she has a lot of the teardrop design. So there's her head. We'll just give her a very basic shape. I'm not going to go into a lot of detail, because for these characters, you don't really have to go into a lot of detail to see the shape. So there's that. And so the first teardrop shape is here in her tail. And then she's also got them here in her fins. This character lives in the void of space, and so there's no wind currents or anything, but she kind of propels herself forward with these are actually tubes or cones. They're not really flat fins and then kind of propel her forward. She doesn't have a mouth because her race is telekinetic, or not telekinetic, telepathic, because you can't talk in space, in the void of space. And then she's got these here, and they're not really for modesty because her race, they don't reproduce, they just regenerate. And so they don't need mammaries, even though they all kind of look female. This is more of a protection for her soul stone, which is in there. And then the other teardrop shape is here in her, I know there's a word for it, but I just cannot think of it right now. The only word coming to mind is cowl, which I know that's not right. So she's got this hood of sorts, and then like jellyfish, she's got like this frill that's underneath there. And then the final teardrop shapes is that she has these kind of tusks here. So that's how I used shape in this very sketchy design. My other shape, trying to think if I should go with, I'll go with Quincy, because it's a guy, so that's one thing. It's different. And we'll see if you guys can figure out his totally subtle shape. I'm doing you so wrong, man. I am not sketching you right. Usually he wears roller skates. I wouldn't see his other arm from this angle. Would see more of his shoulder though. Do a little bit of his face. He's got bags under his eyes because he reads so much. And at night, like a rebellious teenager. And then just to make it totally not subtle at all, I usually draw him wearing a sweater with triangles all over it. So if you haven't guessed already, which I will check the chat now and see, he's an octagon. But yeah, he's a triangle. He's got, let's see, let me find my Photoshop again. He's got a triangle here. Usually his he has more of a triangular shaped stance as well. But I tried to put like triangles in his nose. And he's got usually got triangles like in his collar and then all over his shirt. So yeah, it's a little bit subtler with this character because he is like a wiry kid. But he also, like, when he's in his Grim Reaper outfit, he's got a long cape, which kind of creates a fake triangle kind of shape. So, all right. So now we go on. All right, so the next assignment is to reduce the character that you just designed down to their basic shapes. So this doesn't have to look like a good or complete drawing. It shouldn't take you very long to do. Now, if your first design doesn't have very strong shapes, then change up your design and be like, okay, what do I want my character, like, is this a villain? So then I should stay away from like really round shapes, or I should combine the round shapes with some triangles. And I think you'll find even with characters like villainous characters like Ursula, like you think about her and you're like, oh, she's round because like her body, she's fat, so obviously she's made of round shapes. But if you look at her overall design, she has like a lot of triangular shapes. Like her hair comes up to a point and then it goes down from there, so her whole body is usually a big triangle. Her face is a triangle, like her eyes are very sharp looking. So with her like big eyeshadow, she's usually got triangles for eyes. Like, this is what I mean when I say even though the anatomy shapes might be round, the design shapes for Ursula are triangular. So here's what I did for this assignment for my dude. And so you see I stuck a lot with triangles, and it doesn't look obviously very much like a complete design or anything like that. On the right you'll see I kind of did a very basic sketch of the character, and then I drew over it to see where the shapes were coming out. And then like I could also push those shapes or change them or, you know, do whatever. All right, so does anyone have any questions before we go on to the next topic? I'm never sure how long to wait because of the weird lag thing. So I'm just going to take that as no one has any questions. And I will ask for questions again at the end. So if you're like, oh wait, now I'm getting some. Sorry. What if you have an anthropomorphic character? What would you try to do? Like, shapes are the same no matter what kind of character you're doing. So like Ursula has squid legs. Like, not very... And my character is a kitsune. He has a tail. He doesn't have a head. Or he doesn't have like a human head, but I still just approach it like I would any other design. Now, if you have a more monster character, then like the torso area might be a big shape. Like, I'm thinking a dragon, like the torso would probably be the biggest part, and it might be like ridiculously bigger. But I would still be like, okay, so if it's a friendly dragon, then I want to go with more round shapes. If it's an evil dragon, I want to go with more triangular shapes. So when it comes to shape, it really doesn't matter what the character is, only how you want them to be perceived. Because again, this isn't about anatomy shapes, this is about design shapes. Okay, so Hannah says, if a character is deceptive in their attitude, how might you show that with shapes? Like if they want to be perceived as friendly, but are actually a villain. And this is where I would, kind of like back with Tinkerbell, I would maybe start with round shapes, but then add in like triangles somewhere into their motif. Also, like Loki in the live action movies. Obviously, they can't change Tom Hiddleston's body to be more triangular, but you can definitely see in his design, like in his costumes, they definitely have more triangles in them. And I'm not sure, but I'd be willing to bet when he's trying to come off as a good guy, there's not as many triangles. So that would be my first instinct. You could also go with some more like ambiguous shapes. So like diamonds can be kind of deceptive. So can like moon shapes, pretty much any shape that looks kind of sharp or spiky. Partially because they do have those triangles kind of just inferred. Like a star is just a bunch of triangles put together kind of deal. So yeah, it would definitely depend more on the character's story and if any of those would make sense. But this is like a lot of character design is just trial and error and trying something and being like, oh, I don't like that. Try something else, which is good. It's a good part of designing. Like, I've got some characters that I started years ago, and I'm still redesigning them. Which at some point you just gotta say stop, but I haven't stopped yet. Okay, so if no one else has any other questions, I'm going to move on to the next part, and there will be some time at the end to ask questions. And then also, like, at the on the Discord, if you join the Discord, you can always ask questions on there as well. All right, so line and variance. These kind of go hand in hand a little bit, as in like there can be variance in line. So like thick versus thin lines, jagged versus fluffy lines. And then variance also goes with shapes and how shapes are arranged on a character. So I'll get more into that later. But we're going to start with lines. So you'll see there's a picture of Danny Phantom there. And this, Butch Hartman created this series. And his style is very specific. Like, he likes big, thick lines most of the time. And some of them, as you'll see on Danny, are black. But some of them are gray or like a different color. And then he has thinner lines for inside the face and thicker lines everywhere else. So it kind of, that variety kind of draws your eye to the face because that's the only place where there is thinner lines and your brain picks up on that. And so that just makes it more interesting to look at as opposed to having thick lines all the way throughout. So here's some other ones where thick versus thin lines. I don't know the anime on the left, but I picked the picture because you've got a lot of variety in line width. Like, you've got a lot of thin lines in the face, but thick lines around the eyes, and then you've got thin lines inside the kimono, but thick lines on the shoulders to kind of separate the character from the background. So sometimes it's a style choice, sometimes it's to show, like to clarify the image, or to show things in perspective, or to show weight. Like if you, let me switch over to Photoshop real fast. So like if I make a ball, one of these days I'll be able to draw a circle correctly. So that's a ball. But I can give the ball weight by varying the line. And I can also kind of infer shadow, or I can even infer that it's a shiny ball by kind of taking away some line. Now obviously that's very, very simplistic, but I mean it's a start. And I mean one thing that I do a lot when I'm doing line art is I will squash my circle so that when I'm drawing I automatically get some difference in line width so that it's a more interesting image than if I were to just go with one line width. And you see it's not as interesting as the one above it. Partially because I drew it faster and wasn't really paying attention. But also, like, the width adds some pizzazz. So, wow, so many windows just came up all at once. Okay. So, yeah, you can use like line width for a bunch of different things. But you can also, there's also like jagged versus fluffy lines. So the image on the left is very edgy and so has a lot of thick lines, has a lot of really jagged lines, not a lot of curve to them. So you notice even the fingers on the main character's hand, like they don't end in like curves like a realistic hand would. They're stylized so that they're like square fingertips to kind of keep up that like really jagged motif. And then the image on the left, there's not a lot of jaggedness. Like even the hair that ends in points still has like flowy lines to it so that it's very soft and harmless looking. So this is something to keep in mind, like if you were to design a monster character that has fur. Is the monster like evil? Do you want people to fear the monster? Then you're going to want to put really jagged fur onto it. But is it like a gentle giant that you want people to empathize with? Then you kind of want to go towards more of the fluffy kind of feel. I mean, again, it depends on story. Like in Beauty and the Beast, they kind of ride the line between it. Like, I remember definitely, and when the Beast is first introduced to Maurice, his hair is on end. Like, he definitely looks way more jagged and scary than he does later on when he takes more of a fluffy appearance when you're supposed to empathize with him. I'm talking too much. My throat is getting sore. Okay, shape variance. So, shape variance is using different sizes of shapes to get more interesting designs. So, on the left in this image from a webcomic, which the name escapes me. It's a good webcomic, but I just cannot remember the name of it right now. A lot of the interest in these character designs is the very wide variance between the very broad shoulders and the very thin waists. Like they're just very dynamic in shape. And that's the same thing with Jasmine's design. She goes from like wide bangs to like a thin neck to shoulders to waist to hips to knees to the poofs at the bottom of her pants. So like you just have a lot, even though a lot of hers are circles or triangles depending on how you look at it, it's just the same shape over and over again, but that you have different sizes of those shapes keeps it interesting. So let's see if I can kind of show more what I mean. So a boring character design would have, like if you're doing a circular character, it would shape, 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 or shape, shape, shape. That is no variance because all these shapes are about the same size. But now if I were to mix up that variance a little bit, let's move these guys over and make them smaller. Doo-doo. So even just using one shape, so if I go shape, 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 that's already way more interesting than just the 3 by itself. Then shape, shape, shape. So do 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 do. Just very simple little weird designs. Well, basically Cinderella and Prince Charming drawn by a 5-year-old. So yeah, so that's size variance. Switching up your character designs. So basically when you're doing your shape assignment, also double check that you're not using the same shapes, like the same size in all your shapes. So if I were to go back to mine, I think I'm pretty safe. Like I've got a lot of variety in the shape of my, or in the sizes of my shapes there. All right, so last assignment. And we're almost at the end, which is nice because that's pretty much just an hour. That's kind of what I was aiming for. So assignment is to push your character design to ridiculous limits. And that like include the shapes, like make the shapes as like the shape sizes as ridiculous as you want. Go to the point where, like I learned this in India, and Leo, the director, said push this design until you break it. Like I think the design that I did that day when we did it there was like this character. She started out just kind of, you know, having like long, like gangly legs, and she ended up like with spider legs. It was ridiculous and looked ridiculous. It looked gross. And then after you've broken the design, bring it back a little bit. So here's my ridiculous designs. So you can see how on the left, like his head got super tiny, and I really also I took the jagged and the fluffy thing, and I kind of pushed those two extremes as well. And I could have even gone farther with this. Like, I have problems. I have a difficulty pushing things until they break. So, especially the one on the left, I could have pushed way farther than I did. And then on the right, I went with the, like, really flowy look. And I really like that look, actually. So then I took it back a little bit, and those are the poses that I came up with for this character. So, and I reused those later on because I was like, I really like these poses after I figured out like some research and stuff. So that's it for this session. Next week we're doing costuming, so come ready for that. But yeah, So does anyone have any questions about anything that we've gone over or things that just came to mind while I was going over this stuff? Silence as I wait for the thing to catch up. Yes, you can upload the assignments to Discord. Every week I will put up a new, like, in the assignments tab, I will reiterate all the assignments for that week. I haven't done that yet, but I will do it right after this, so you don't have to like come back to this video to remind yourself what the assignments are. And then each week of assignments will have its own text channel. So this week there's only going to be one text channel up there for assignments, but then next week there will be a second assignments channel for just the costuming assignments. As far as the assignment, should we be making multiple characters or just one? As many as you want. Like, if you want to go, it's really just how much work you want to put into this. Like, I will try to get to everybody's assignments on the Discord. And, like, if you wouldn't mind me going over your assignment in next week's live stream, then put your assignment in critiques, because that's what I'll be doing. I'll be critiquing it. So you can upload it to assignments and also critiques. But yes. Like, it might actually help, like if you're trying to design a cast of characters. That would be interesting. Just waiting to see if there's any more questions that come out. All right, I think that will do for this first session. Thank you so much, everybody, for for sitting in your homes and listening to me talk for an hour. You have all been a great audience as far as I can tell. But I look forward to seeing all of your assignments. Again, in the description, there is a link for donations. But there's also a link for the Discord. If either of those don't work, let me know. Oh, okay. Another question. Lovart asks, what is your thoughts on plot? Not sure what you mean by that. Like, as far as how much should plot factor into a design, I think we'll get into that more next week. Because costuming is really where story starts to, like how the story impacts your character starts to come into the design. So if that's what you mean, we'll go over that next week. Same time, same place, same bat channel. All right, so I'm going to end the stream now. If anyone has any questions, you can put them in the comments, or you can go over to the Discord and ask them there. And I will see you guys next week.